Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another recording of Marketing Scoop podcast episode. Podcast brought to you by Semrush. This is just a little bit of an informal intro before we get going with the proper podcast recording. Always a good idea just to give people a couple of minutes just to join us. A lot of the audience who watch us live do participate in the Semrush Twitter chat that happens 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. in GMT, just before we get started here at 5 p.m. GMT. And of course, this show is the recording of an audio podcast. We do it on YouTube just so we get a little bit of interaction and you get to see us participating as well. But if you aren't an audio podcast subscriber, you can, of course, subscribe by going over to semrush.com/podcast and follow the links there to your preferred flavor of podcatcher, be it iTunes, Android, Stitcher, Overcast, Spotify, something else. I'm sure you can find it on there and subscribe to the audio podcast. But in the meantime, I can see that there are quite a few people that have joined us live as live viewers already. Howdy. Fantastic to have you on board as part of the live audience. Tell us a little bit about you. Where in the world are you joining us from? We've already got some people to say that they're from Massachusetts. I'm going to increase the size of the chat in my screen in front of me here, actually, because we've already got quite a few people chatting away. So, yeah, we've got Fabian from Toronto. We've got Kendall from Massachusetts, Mark from Missouri, Don from Philadelphia, Ashish from Kathmandu. We've got One Touch Property Investments from London in the UK, another one from London as well, Virginia, Canada, Birmingham. We've got quite a few live listeners joining us. Birmingham in the UK, of course. There's a Birmingham in the States as well. Maybe we've got someone from the States there. So we've got probably US leads slightly, then the UK,
Canada, then Canada leads. Canada.
There's and coming in from behind, it's Canada. We've got a few mentions of different places in Ontario. We've got Toronto there, Waterloo. I'm not sure where Waterloo is, but it's obviously in Ontario somewhere.
It's not far from Toronto, actually. Very close to where I was born. I was born just outside of Waterloo, so outside of Toronto, between Toronto and Waterloo.
Not where Napoleon did surrender, but another one.
Different, yeah. Well, you know, we were settled by a lot of Brits, so.
Shall we just change the topic to that, to Canada? I'm sure we can do half an hour on
on chocolate in Canada as well, because don't forget, chocolate's very important in Canada.
We've got a Montreal in the house as well. Have you been to Montreal, Judith?
I have indeed. Quebec is a beautiful province, but of course, Ontario has better wine.
Parlez-vous français?
Oui, oui.
Oh, trop bien.
And you really speak French. I mean, you haven't told by that.
It's beaten into us from a very young age in Canada.
Yeah.
We've got Kevin from Michigan, David Sace. Hi, David, from London. We've got Maldives. I don't think we've had the Maldives before. That's pretty impressive. We have, is it Poutine?
Poutine, yes. That's not, it should not be classified as food.
Yeah.
It's fat with fat and then fat sort of drizzled over it.
Yeah, I saw some people order that in Ontario, actually, and I wasn't encouraged to order it. So, is that the right decision?
Oh boy, it was. Yeah, the beaver tail is much better than the poutine because, well, it's a dessert. So
beaver tails are good.
Yeah, no beaver.
I had a beaver tail in Ottawa.
Yeah, it's so sweet but delicious.
Everyone wondering, beaver tails?
Yeah. No beavers were actually harmed in the production of beaver tails.
Now, before it goes downhill too much more, I think we'd probably better start the recording of the podcast proper. So what I'll do is I'll hit the music button, and then that little bonus feature that we've just shared with you for the last 2 minutes isn't something that will be part of the audio podcast, but this moment onwards will be. So here we go. Marketing Scoop Season 2, Episode 9. What are the most important paid search metrics to be tracking? Broadcasting live on the Semrush YouTube channel, this is Marketing Scoop. I'm David Bain.
And I'm Judith Lewis. And welcome to the Semrush show that reveals the latest digital trends and technologies that impact your marketing strategy.
Together with industry experts, we delve into SEO, advertising, and content marketing to uncover the ultimate recipe for digital marketing success. Let's meet today's guests. First up, a man who's handled some of the largest paid search campaigns in history. He was an early employee at Wix.com and currently runs one of the top paid search advertising agencies. Welcome to The Scoop, Joe Bondarovsky.
Well, thank you, David. I'm very happy to be here.
Great.
Next,
Joe.
Next, a keynote and conference speaker, a Search Awards judge, and the MD and founder of Biddable Moments. Welcome, Samantha Noble.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Superb stuff. So today we're going to be talking about the most important paid search metrics to be tracking and aiming to optimize. So let's go with Samantha first. Samantha, what are the metrics that you're paying closest attention to at the moment?
There's a few different ones. I think you've still got the standard metrics that we've always had that we need to start looking at. But the way that I'm trying to kind of get clients to pay more attention to metrics that are happening on site as well as within a PPC campaign, because the amount of people that you work with and you see all this stuff where you're sort of delivering the brilliant traffic through to the site, your click-through rates are going where they need to be, the cost per clicks are coming down, and the traffic lands on the site and then it doesn't necessarily convert. And I think it's trying to get brands, agencies, suppliers, whoever it is, to kind of work a lot more in synergy together to make sure that the traffic that you're driving through to the site is converting and working together to try and improve that. So I think that's a key point. Secondly to that, and that kind of goes hand in hand really, is making sure that we're looking at micro and macro conversions. I think there's so many people that will focus on, has this campaign delivered me X result? And I think if we just focus on those core metrics whereby we might be looking at a sale or a transaction or a lead that's coming into the business or a phone call, that's great. But then there's also a lot of other trigger points further down that may actually be helping somebody along the way to get there, whether it's how long they're spending on site, whether it's have they viewed a certain key page that you're looking to push people to, but not necessarily converted just yet. All of those metrics, I think, need to be tracked as well. And using something like Tag Manager, it allows us to do that a lot easier. So that for me is sort of key at the moment.
Absolutely. And what about yourself, Joel?
Me personally, well, everything that Samantha just said, it's all very important. I mean, you definitely want to take all the signals, all the data you can to optimize your campaigns and also understand what's working, what's not. Micro conversions are essential in being able to do that. For me personally, though, like when I'm working on campaigns, the first thing I pay attention to is much higher up it comes first. It's the actual ad impression. Click-through rates, really, I mean, the higher click-through rate, it's not just more traffic coming to your site. It's also meaning that you're being a better advertiser for Google. So Google's going to reward you. They're going to show your ads more often. They're going to charge you less to get those, those ad impressions. If you have very well-written ads, you'll end up, paying a fraction of what your advertising competitors to get there. Now, a big problem is understanding how you're standing against your competition. Like we sometimes don't know what a good CTR is. For example, if you're ranked at the bottom of a page at the bottom of the page, a 1% CTR could be pretty good. If you're ranked in the very top position, 1% might not be. But a big problem is that what average position actually has been reported by Google, the way they've been doing it, it has been a little bit misleading, which is very exciting because they just introduced something new, which help you understand what your ad position is with new search ad position metrics that they're rolling out, which help you understand how you your position doesn't necessarily tell you if you're on the top of the page or on the bottom of the page. This can make a very big deal on your CTR. So if you're trying to understand if some ads are working well or not, you can actually look at its performance only when they're on the top of the page results. When I say on the top, I mean above the organic results and so on. So I think Google just helped us a lot more with search advertising to understand how well we're doing compared to our competitors. Because if your CTR is not cutting it, you shouldn't be running until you could figure out how. They did it before with display, with display advertising years ago. They're reporting to you on your relative CTR. So that was nice, and I'm very happy to see that they're doing it now in a different way, but they're doing it with search.
So is CTR the first metric that you'll actually look at, Joel?
Well, CTR helps me understand how engaging my ads are. And if my ads aren't engaging, then I'm not going to get reward. I'm not making Google money. That's the first thing you have to do. Google's a partner. They are giving you a limited opportunity to show your ads on their limited commodity, which is the ad space. They only have so many ad impressions. If you don't, yet they get paid per click. If you don't make the most of those clicks, they're not getting paid. If you don't get make the most of those clicks, you could be willing to pay crazy high CPCs, but someone willing to pay a fraction of that will be more profitable for Google because their ads are more engaging. My problem has always been knowing if my CTR is good enough or not. So I kind of in my mind had a scale, like, okay, if I'm in position number 1 and I have like less than 5%, something's wrong, right? While in the bottom position, well, back in the day when they had the side ads as well, being somewhere like 1% for like an average position of 7, that's actually pretty good. When I say pretty good, I mean better than my competition. And really, that's what matters. Now that I can actually know where the ads are really shown, which is even more critical with the new format that they have, without the side ads, I'm able to do it better. So I think when you're looking at CTR, you need to not only look at your CTR, you need to look at your CTR based on your position, which they're now letting you do.
And one of the primary things that you mentioned that impacts CTR is your ad copy. Are there 1 or 2 tips that you could offer regarding ad copy that is working particularly well for you at the moment?
Yeah, I could give 5 tips really quickly, actually. The headline of the ad, there's certain components you really should have. You should first of all reflect what the user is searching for, which is most likely going to be in the headline. That's almost always the best. So the search term, one way or another, reflected there. If you're having trouble doing it, you probably need to split into more ad groups. A. B. People are also thinking things that they're not looking for. They're having an inner dialogue with themselves and they're searching to buy new shoes. They might be thinking, I want these shipped quickly. Or they might be thinking, I want something comfortable or something that I could run fast in. Well, that's another element of ad copy that you should also add to complete that inner dialogue, to make them feel like you're delivering what they're wanting. You don't know that through the search itself because they're not expressing it. So you need to like brainstorm it and test different variations. And then if you need elements for credibility, so they could trust you. We sold 10,000 shoes last week. That sort of thing might help. And a clear call to action saying, buy now, and so on. And that comes at the end of the ad. So bottom line, think of all those different components, mix and match them, and that's how you should conduct your tests.
Just a couple of bits to add on that as well with the ad text, where you were talking about finding out the key things that your customers are actually saying that they're looking for. One thing that I've been doing recently is actually trawling through all of the reviews and testimonials that clients and customers are leaving on websites. So whether it's on Trustpilot or whatever site it's on, looking through and looking at the terminology that they're using. So if it's free, if you're talking all the time in your ad copy saying free postage and packaging, but your customer base are actually online saying it was a great shipping or great delivery or great whatever messaging that they're using, take that terminology and make sure that that's the messaging that you're using in your ads, because it's then using the same language that your customer base are talking in as well.
That's actually very good advice for me. No, really, that's brilliant. Because I mean, I kind of assume it, you know what I mean? But I never thought of actually looking at the reviews, seeing what people are saying to give me some, real qualitative, data behind why it is, not just numbers themselves.
And especially at this time of the year when retailers are going to be looking for every little incremental gain that they can get. Speaking of which, Sam, you mentioned something about micro conversions and also talking about assists. How would you look at measuring the value of things like micro conversions and assists for anyone of our listeners who might be an SME or trying to run things themselves or working with their agency and want to get a better report?
Okay, so in the new AdWords interface, they've removed the ability to see assisted conversion data. So previously you had a whole column that was assisted conversions, assisted conversion value. So they've kind of removed that ability to see that nice and easily. So the way that I typically will structure mine is my macro conversions are set up with conversion tracking, and that is shown to include the data in the conversion column. And all of my micro conversions I set up so that they're not shown in the conversion column. So what this means is when you're then looking at setting up a report, I'd have a column that's for conversions, cost per conversion, and conversion rate by the conversion. But then additionally to that, you can also apply other columns that say all conversions. So your all conversions column would show everything, including your macro and your micro conversions. And then your general conversions column would purely just be your macros. So that when you're actually looking at making decisions over whether a keyword or an ad group or campaign is performing, if you just look at the macro conversions, you could be switching things off that are actually leading people along their journey. So that's the way I'm kind of getting around that at the moment.
And not just switching things off. I mean, so many times you have to make decisions on keywords. Like there, you have your keyword list, and you have maybe, you know, usually a few of them are driving most of the sales, and the rest of them might have a sale here or there. The rest of those keywords, if you combine them, they're actually pretty significant in your spend, but you're not really bidding on them well because you don't have enough sales from them. Yeah. For every sale you get, you're going to have many micro conversions that lead up to it. So I really use micro conversions to help me give value to things that don't have enough statistics to really make a judgment call on them, which are like, you know, those long tail keywords and so on.
Yeah, I think it also feeds into if you're using any automated bidding strategies as well. If you're using any of the, if you're only tracking your macro conversions, the number of conversions that you're getting through are going to be less. Whereas if you're using the micro conversions and you're adding those in as well, you can amalgamate all of those and combine the conversion data so that you can reach more of the thresholds that you need to make the automated strategies actually work for you.
I understand. Okay. Yeah, it's a kind of Google trying to figure out the right way for us to use all the data that we could collect.
Yeah.
We've had a question through on the YouTube channel from Stephen Taylor about what you were speaking about earlier, Sam, just from the macro conversions and micro conversions columns.
Yes.
He said that he needed a little bit of help or a little bit more explanation. Is there a blog post or something something that you could suggest that he looks at?
What I will do straight after this is I will go into one of my accounts and I'll screenshot the columns and I will share those on Twitter.
Perfect. So he'll be able to look at your Twitter, which is?
It's Sam Jane Noble.
Perfect. And he'll be able to look, and anyone will be able to look at that after this webcast to see exactly what's going on with the columns.
Yes, I'll put a couple of screenshots. I'll show you how to set up a macro and micro conversion, and then I'll show the report that you can get off the back of it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And now talking about what we were talking about earlier with regards to in-store conversions.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Creepy.
So obviously we're just before we went on air, we were talking about the fact that Google were trying to give a little bit more detail on estimating traffic from in-stores, so non-digital traffic. Joe, do you want to give a summary of what's happening regarding that at the moment?
Yeah, well, so you know, Google is trying to give us as much data as we could use to do the best online marketing we can to increase our value per visitor so that way we could bid higher and afford to do so. So a lot of shops, I mean, they're not just online, they're also offline. They don't get the most out of their net marketing because they don't really understand what brings them into the stores. So what Google's doing now is they're reporting on foot traffic, on people that come into the shop who had clicked on your ads. And the way they're doing this actually is pretty smart, but at the same time, it has some big flaws. They're able to track people that are on their phones who are logged into their Google Maps. So that's how they're able to know that that Google user who conducted that search, clicked on that ad, is now into that store itself. And because only a very tiny percentage of people will fall into that category, that is the category that is also being tracked when they go into the store. It's an estimation. It's a very rough estimation. They're probably going to see one person actually succeed and blow it up to mean that meant 15 people did it, or whatever they might do.
So do you think an advertiser should be actually thinking of changing their strategy based upon this information?
I think that you should treat them just like you treat micro conversions. You should, because you see, in the aspect that it's an indication. It doesn't necessarily, and it could be positive. And if your data is very low, that indication could mean it could be enough to know that something is good. If there's a keyword that isn't getting any sales, but you see that it brought people into the store, then maybe you shouldn't want to kill off that keyword, because maybe there's something else there. Similarly to how if there's a keyword that hasn't brought any conversions after not spending very much, but has shown some other micro conversions that do probably lead to conversions, you might want to give it more value as well. I say it has to be taken with a grain of salt, because sometimes both of them don't necessarily lead to the sale itself. For example, let's say a micro conversion is someone visiting the order form, but for some reason the step right before the order form isn't completely clear, so people click next for the wrong reason. Do you know what I mean? So micro conversions always need to be looked at with a grain of salt, but they are something that you do need to use in order to, really understand the value of stuff and data is thin, just like the in-store stuff.
Sam, we've been fairly Google-centric with our conversation so far, and I know that you certainly run campaigns on Facebook and other areas. Are there one or two key metrics from other platforms that jump out at you that you would certainly recommend people to be aware of and actually keep on top of when advertising on these different platforms?
Well, on Facebook particularly, I think one of the key things that you should be paying attention to is the frequency that people are seeing your adverts. People get ad fatigue on Facebook very, very quickly, and just will either start ignoring the ads that they're seeing, or we're still sort of saying, I don't want to see ads from this advertiser anymore. So I think that's one thing, and it can tot up really quickly if you're targeting quite a wide audience. The amount of times people are seeing those ads can really prop up quite quickly.
Is there a best number of times that an ad should show to someone? Because obviously, seeing an ad once, you may not actually acknowledge it or even remember seeing it. Is there a certain number of times, i.e., 5 or 7 or 10, that you shouldn't go above in terms of best practice?
I think you need to measure it for different clients. So depending on the business that you're trying to market, look at that kind of sweet spot and correlate the data between, okay, if somebody's seen the ad 3 times, what is my conversion data looking like? If it goes up to 5, how does that then impact it? And kind of keep a track on it and monitor that moving forwards. Personally, I'd say anywhere between 3 and 5 times, and then try and switch it. Just trying to have different creative in there, just so that people are seeing maybe a different message and a different image. It doesn't have to be drastically different, but just trying to refresh that time and time again can help. So I think that's one thing within Facebook. The other thing with Facebook is it allows you to set up different conversion metrics. So whether it's similar to a micro conversion, if you like, so whether it's a view of a key page, whether it's the time on site, whether it's certain content, whether it's a download, if it's a lead or a purchase, getting all of that data in so that you're actually saying, okay, well, this campaign's leading to lots of people viewing this piece of content. But what we really want them to do is actually download it, and they're not necessarily doing that. Or they're actually viewing content and then moving on to make a purchase. All of that data should be set up. Facebook give you the ability to set up custom columns, within their reporting dashboard, so that you can actually say, this is the reporting that I want to see for this particular client, because it differs every time. And you can save that so that you can see that all the time from in there. So they're my kind of key things that I would use from Facebook. Facebook are also trying to do a lot more with the in-store conversion data as well. And I think it's going to be an interesting year next year to see where the platforms take it, because nobody's really hit the nail on the head and sort of really grasped it fully yet. So I think it will be good to see how they tackle that, because I think more people are definitely signed into Facebook and Instagram than they are Google Maps.
And if it's not all of a sudden killed off by some privacy legislation as well.
So, Sam, in relation to ad fatigue, Laurie Netchell was asking, is ad fatigue not the same on Google SERPs? I would imagine not, but what's your opinion on that?
I don't think it's so much. I think in Facebook particularly, you are trying to disrupt somebody's journey. And Instagram, you're trying to kind of capture their attention as they're doing something else. Whereas on Google, somebody is searching and then clicking through. I can't imagine
it's active.
Necessarily search and see the same ad over and over and over. But you do need to split test your ad copy as well.
Actually, there are people who search and search and search and see the same ad over and over again. You see, that's something you see all the time. But by the way, everything you just said, I think holds true to the Google Display Network. I mean, ad fatigue as well. And because and one thing I used to always do is run run frequency reports where but I wouldn't do it by conversion rate as much as look at CTR, because it's like you have a certain CTR for, let's say, given targeting, whether it's on Facebook or the display network. Wherever you are disrupting people's journey by putting something in front of their face, there's a CTR, and that CTR, and you could kind of segment it by many dimensions. This dimension is how many times are people seeing the same thing, and that's your overall average CTR will drop if you're making people tired of the same ad. So one of the things that I do when I'm optimizing campaigns at the beginning is I would just like set it to 1, so just people can only see it like once a week or whatever, and then once the campaigns get well optimized and profitable, I start adding them, and then what I'll look at is like how the CTR drops after people see the ads, over multiple times, and also over different time periods, and that's how I know when to cap it. Anyway.
Joe, talking about CTR, Simul Media is asking in the chat, how is Google determining low or high CTR? They're saying an example is having 20% KPR but being flagged for a low CTR.
Oh, okay. The way they're determining it is how you stack up to your competition. I mean, that's really what's in it for them, like that's their business is getting clicks every time people see ads, and but they get paid not for the times people see it, but for the times people click on it. So they will treat you much better if you get more clicks than the other people trying to target the same places. That's pretty much it. While you're getting that report, I would suggest waiting. I don't know how many impressions you've gotten. I mean, usually it could take like 1,000 or so. Everything I was told once, everything takes 1,000 impressions before something changes. It could be with more volume, it'll go up. But I've also never trusted completely like those Google diagnostics. They do help, but you don't know why it is necessarily.
And at this time of the year as well, you're going to be seeing a lot more clicks and a lot more search activity. So as far as measuring things right now, Sam, do you have any tips for our listeners as far as, it's a skew time of the year. How can they be testing and measuring things accurately right now?
Right now, I would personally, I would ignore data from earlier months in the year. I think if you're looking to do any measurements and testing now, you need to be looking at a smaller data set and making decisions that way, because things are very, very different, especially in any sort of retail and e-com business. Like you take Black Friday and everything into consideration, you see the spikes that happen there. So if you're trying to make any decisions with regards to, I don't know, time of day or day a week, personally, for me, I'd exclude those days out of my analysis and out of any decision making if I'm looking back over a period of time, because it will massively skew a Friday performance, and it will make your Fridays look like it's a lot better than it maybe is over the course of the year. So personally, I would focus on quick wins. If you're looking at things to sort of optimize for the campaigns as of now, I'd look at a short space of data. And if I'm looking to sort of make decisions over a period of time, I would exclude some of those key holiday dates out of that and sort of try and get a bit more normalized data to make decisions off the back of.
Yeah, what about look at the previous year if you have the data?
Or if you've got the whole year, then it makes sense. But I think with things like Black Friday, particularly in the UK as well, it's growing massively every single year. So even comparing year on year, when you're looking at certain accounts, 2017 versus 2018 for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and that whole weekend period, the data's so much bigger this year to what we saw last year in a lot of cases. So I think comparing year on year for those can work, but I would still probably take that out of my analysis just because of how much it does skew that data.
Yeah.
So with a retailer or someone selling SaaS, you would suggest to them that they use micro periods of time and exclude their Black Friday, Cyber Monday, etc. So either use.
No, sorry, you go.
Sorry, I was going to say either use non-peak days to look at, or if you're looking at a peak day and you're trying to micromanage your accounts, look at a period of time. Like if retailers right now, they're looking at every incremental gain that they can make. So if they're having to exclude a lot of days like Cyber Monday, Black Friday, that weekend you said as well, what can they do as far as measuring now day by day as they're going to make sure that they're improving constantly?
I think looking at things like your average position, your click-through rate, your conversion data. I'm currently working with a life insurance brand, which has got nothing to do with Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But if anything, it's actually had a negative impact. So because people are obviously busy doing other things. So even though Black Friday might not necessarily be the right thing for a lead gen business, it may have a negative impact on that. So I think you should be looking at that on an incremental basis as well.
Well, I have a lot of experience in the healthcare sphere, so online diets and weight loss programs and whatnot. That is, I mean, okay, so basically no one wants to get into a diet between Thanksgiving and Christmas, as you could imagine. Come January 1st, you know what everybody does. Come January 1st, besides the fact that everyone decides to have these resolutions, the ad space costs much less money because all the retailers are out. The retailers are making these huge pushes. So that's where, like, I think a lot of B2B companies that are trying to, B2B companies are suffering. Also, services like life insurance, like you're talking about, are suffering. But come January 1st, it's like people are more into taking care of business. And you have that kind of slingshot effect and everything just explodes.
Well, for those of you watching live on YouTube, we can see that Joe's battery in his computer is just about to die.
That's not my computer, that's my camera.
Or it's his camera. Okay. Well, if you suddenly disappear, then we know what's happened there.
If I disappear, it's not my audio will still be here.
Wonderful stuff. Well, audio is key because that's where the majority of the listeners are, even though there are quite a few viewers for this particular episode. But I reckon we are approaching just about the end of this episode, season 2, episode 9. Just about time for an actionable tip from each of our guests related to, or not necessarily related to, what we've been discussing so far. So let's go with Samantha first. Samantha, what is your actionable tip?
Okay, so a New Year's resolution that I think everybody should be taking away from any paid media management that they're doing is using Google Data Studio for reporting. So you can harness the power of that platform to pull in the data. If you use something like Supermetrics as well, pull in all the data from Facebook, from Bing, from LinkedIn, from Google, from your SEO campaigns, from everywhere, amalgamate that into Google Data Studio and save yourself hours and hours and hours of monotonous reporting time. So that's my number one tip. If you're not using Data Studio, go and have a play and save yourself a lot of time next year so that you can actually focus on things that you want to be doing rather than putting numbers into spreadsheets.
Wonderful stuff. You can find Samantha over at biddablemoments.com.
And so let's move on to Joel. Joel, what's your actionable tip?
Stay on top of new product releases by Google or whatever other marketing platform you're using. These days, Google has been coming up with updates at a faster rate than I've ever experienced. And there's there's new products and new reporting that they're coming out with that can really, really, really like help increase your performance. And if you're not, if you're just stuck in doing what you're used to and, ignoring it, you could be missing out. You could not be doing as well as you could if you didn't notice something like I just did about, for example, those, the new reporting on search impressions and whatnot. So pay attention to that because otherwise you might get left behind, and things are very dynamic and they're moving faster. And also make sure you have a fully charged battery in your camera before you start.
Both of those are very important tips. You can find Joel over at Liquid Joel on Twitter. And now we've come to the end of our episode. I've been your co-host, Judith Lewis. You can find me over on dickhabit.com.
And I'm David Bain, your other co-host. You can find me over at digitalmarketingradio.com. And thanks for that battery mention again, Joe. I was thinking of cutting the previous battery conversation out, but it's going to be very tricky to do that now, so I might not do that, yes. But here we go.
I shouldn't try to be funny.
We'll be recording the next episode, season 2, episode 10 of The Scoop, in a different place. That's on the Semrush Facebook page. And at 4 p.m. GMT next Wednesday, when I'll actually be hosting a section of a mega live stream, getting tips from 120 digital marketers, including Samantha and Joe, on what you, dear listener, should be incorporating as part of your digital marketing strategy for 2019. So to sign up and watch that live, just go to digitalmarketingin2019.com.
And if you liked what you heard today, make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast as well. Just head over to semrush.com/podcast and find the link there to your favorite show on Spotify, podcasts, Android, and many other good podcast stores. And remember, don't just listen. You got to subscribe to the show. Subscribers help our rankings, so that would be very much appreciated.
Absolutely. But until next time, be fantabulous and do one thing that scares you. Adios.